Hello and welcome to Illuminated. I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. This is a space where we talk about books, not only how they help us connect to ourselves as readers, also as writers, as creative people, but also how books help us connect to the larger community around us. And today I am going to be talking to you about a graphic novel, a little different to what I've talked about before. My space tends to be creative nonfiction and in memoir. That's what I teach. That's what I read a lot of. That's what I write into. It's what I coach clients on. And I do bring fiction into this space because I think that also allows for us to gain access to ourselves from different angles by using fiction. But today, I wanted to talk to you about something that kind of blends that together. It's a hybrid work in some way, and that is Cannupa Hanska Luger's Surviva. And I heard him talking about this book and the creation of it, how it came about, and some of his goals in this space. So I just want to talk about that a little here. This is from clips that I've listened to, not from personal connection or understanding with him, with the artist, but this idea that a lot of his art is in big installations, and this desire to have his art available and accessible to many, and have the ability for people to take it away with them, have it in their homes, um, and the opportunity for those that I can't actually go to see his exhibits to have the artwork, in their homes, which I think is a beautiful way of giving access to art in a different way. The other the other story that he shared was that he received a 1970s military survivor guide kind of as a joke, and in that, when he started looking at it, he realized, one, it uses a lot of indigenous knowledge. Two, it also shows how we're kind of connected in some ways. And this idea of like, how can we reimagine what that would be and what that would look like? And so the premise of this, and that you get early on, and this, I think this is where it has this like fiction slant, and that is that the colonizers and people that had money leave the planet, and then the indigenous remain, as well as, and I think it says as well as those who were poor that couldn't leave, but really that it talks about this idea about then how um, well, I'm going to read the last line of that because I think it's really important. And to remind us that the land does not belong to us, but that we belong to the land. And I think that is the heart of what this is about, this idea that, you know, we're not here to possess the land. We are here to live with the land, and we belong to it, and we are part of it. And so what does that mean, and how does that change our way of thinking when it doesn't become something to own and conquer, but something that we belong to? And so we get that throughout in here. And so it's a really hybrid form. There's artwork, there's like that little storytelling that I just shared with you, there's redaction poetry, there's larger storytelling, there's quotes in here as well. The back, like I said, calls it fiction. I feel like it's a little bit of both because it uses this nonfiction form. And then it's also talking about like how we should be living in some way, like how we can be in community. It's stunning, it's beautiful, amazing artwork in here. And I know for those who are listening can't see what's going on and what I'm showing in this space, but I think it's one that you have to experience. This isn't something you can like just read. It's artwork. You need to experience it. You need to open it up. You need to look through it. You need to kind of allow yourself to be immersed in it, and allows this space to think a new way about story and how you can access story and how you can access narrative. So this layering of the books, that it was a survival guide with artwork over top of it, with storytelling over top of it, or redacted out to create a new story, in that poetry sense or in that storytelling sense of taking the original words, but reducing them to a different story, allowing them to form something new. And what does that mean as a whole, to take something that's already there and allow it to become something else? It's not about changing it. it's about it reemerging in a new way. And that's what I really liked about the way that he used artwork and weaving in the storytelling to really allow this text to become something of its own and to move into this space. So there are a few places here where there's like some focuses. It's really hard to describe in a space about like it's more of like how you're experiencing it. Um, so again, I would encourage you to pick this up and allow yourself to experience it like you would going to see a piece of art. Someone can tell you what it's about or what they're seeing, but you really need to have that experience, that moment yourself, that reflection in that space as well on your own. But there are some focuses throughout. So it talks about time a lot, which I love talking about time. This idea, um, it's looped in there, this kind of the time's not linear, time's not linear, time's not linear throughout the book. And as you know, I love the spiral of time, which allows for the past, present, and future to not only be in a circle, but to actually be in a spiral, allows for the collapse, allows for the connection through those timelines at the same time. And I think that's kind of in here. It's not as explicit as saying it's a spiral of time, but there's this element of ancestors, connection to land, connection to the past, like how the past is informing the future, how the future is behind us, like pushing us forward. So I think it's in there, not as specific. There's also a lot of conversation or some storytelling around travel and the importance of travel and the importance of experiencing in that travel space. There's also, as I mentioned, the connection to land. And again, it's based off a survival guide, right? Which is telling you how to live off the land, how to use the land to survive, whether it's food or shelter or water. Like it's like how can you survive using the land? And if you take that reverse, the land doesn't belong to us, we belong to the land. It's more like how the land provides for you to survive. So I think it's a beautiful twist of like a reimagining or rethinking about that in that space. And then he also addresses this idea of communication and community, but a lot about like how we need to communicate and we need to be in community. We need to communicate. The repetition of these things of time, of travel, of land, and of communication weave all together to inform this larger graphic novel, as it's called. And so in this space, I feel like if you think about some of that stuff, the idea about time and how time exposes itself or exposes the land, how we can communicate with the land, how the land communicates with us. This idea of more and more people going out there and talking to trees and getting connected and understanding their roots and how they communicate and just all those kind of things. It's part of our way of looking at the world right now. And I love that so much. And so this book seems so timely to be in this space of as we think about this. A brief pause in programming to really offer my sincere thanks for you joining me here on the Lit Illuminated podcast, as well as all your support through likes and subscription and comments. It all matters for podcasts like this one. And I also just wanted to mention that Lit Illuminated is more than this podcast. There are other ways to get connected to literature and the way that it informs our lives. I offer workshops as well as MFA-like seminars. I do independent study as well as mentoring memoir writers. So if you're interested in getting more connected with Lit Illuminated, please check out RebeccaBeardsall.com. And thank you again for listening today. And then, as always on this podcast, I like to at least give you a quote. And so this is on page, I think it was 88. And it's actually a quote of somebody else that's in the book itself. The quote is by Black Fox, Carl Whitman Jr. from 1984. And this is the quote. So this means putting aside hatred, jealousy, and pettiness, which have prevented all from working together. Currently, we don't know where we are going, and nobody seems to care. In the meantime, our problems are increasing and worsening. For too long, we have waited for a vague someone to do something. The time has come when we must admit that this is not going to happen. After all, these are our problems, and if we don't do something about them, then we cannot expect someone else to be concerned enough to solve them for us. And then on the next page of that, it's just so gorgeous, is the way we communicate changes who we are. It was so impactful. It's so beautiful. I saw in the back when they're talking about it that the font used is actually based off of handwriting, which I think is brilliant. And it's an art piece in your hands in book form. It's stunning. And I highly recommend picking it up, sharing it with others. I'm still kind of processing my reading of it, my experiencing of it, because again, it's not just reading, it's being immersed in the book. And so I will continue to think about it. But since the heart of this podcast is talking about how we're connected and how books can inform us of the world around us, but also connect us to one another, I think that's what this book is doing in its essence. And it's beautiful. It's different. It's using that kind of hybrid hermit crabbing kind of methodology, which I like to use in my creative nonfiction, but it's on a whole book level, which is one of the reasons I was like, when I first heard about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need that book, because I love when books play with form, when they push against the norm, when they question what is a book and how can we create something new in that space. This hits all those marks and more. So Cannupa Hanska Luger's Surviva, highly recommend it. Thanks for joining me here today on Lit Illuminated. I hope to see you soon.